Tears. How did we come up with this topic? Do you remember?
You sent it kind of later at night one night, and you're just like, late night idea. Tears. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to check in with her tomorrow morning. Perhaps she is currently crying right now. I don't know.
We have a fun topic for today's conversation about tears. I like how so I've been listening back to the different podcasts and how we've started each podcast.
Yes. And
I giggle because it's just constant laughter for like a good minute. Have you like listened back at any of our? It's just constant laughter. I don't think we'll ever have like a slated start to the show, like scripted.
Right, like this week on Story, Success, and Stuff. Yeah, that's probably not.
My name is Gwen Eiffel. No, none of that.
Right.
Okay, sounds good.
Maybe we'll mix it up sometime. We'll see.
And this is an interesting topic for us to talk about today, specifically because we have a guest in the room we have to mention.
We have three guests in the room.
We have three guests in the room. And talking about this topic, at first you're like, oh, is this depressing? That person asked, like, oh, is this depressing? I have to give a shout out to Sophia, our intern here at Siarza, who is behind me. I can look. I can't see her. And she goes, oh, is this a depressing topic? And I'm like, no, I don't think so.
Which actually brings up a fantastic point that I'll circle back around to.
Because we have to make sure we introduce the two other guests in the room.
You can't see them, but you might hear them. If you hear really weird breathing or panting, it's not us. There's no weirdo in the room. But my dogs, Charlie and Indiana, are kicking it with us today. You can meet them on our team page at siarza.com if you want to know who they are. They're around the office quite a bit. And if either Kristelle or I have weird faces going on, it's because there's a lot of dog fart happening as well, and it's not great.
I thought it was me.
It could be. Okay, well, I just want
to reach over and pet them.
I know.
So the topic today is tears. So we've had some really fun topics like squad.
Fun itself.
Fun. Yeah, that was it. I mean, the fun episode was the funnest for sure. But this one, I said, we wait. So how we prepare for the show, right? We say, okay, so what are we talking about today? We have a list of 20 topics, and we kind of see what are we feeling today? What are we vibing on today? And this one, I think, hit. It's a for real topic. We talk about what people have told us, like, there's no shiny picture of success in entrepreneurs, being an entrepreneur, being in business. Everybody thinks it's all peachy and you have to grind it out, et cetera. But people forget about the human part of being human. And so this is definitely one of those topics, I think. Tears. How did we come up with this topic? Do you remember?
You sent it kind of later at night one night, and you're just like, late night idea. Tears. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to check in with her tomorrow morning. Perhaps she is currently crying right now. I don't know.
I wasn't.
Okay.
But I think I remember what prompted me to write that late night Slack message. I think either I had cried the night before or I was at the brink of it. And I said, oh, this is going to be really good.
I'm going to tell this story at some point soon.
Yeah. If there was somebody that could probably remember the amount of times that I've cried about the business, and we have team members here that have been here for a year like you, 3 years, 4 years.
7 years.
7 to 8. I would say there's only one person who's not even on payroll that's probably heard me cry about the company the most, and that's my better half, Spencer. And I think that's what it had prompted me to write that late night Slack message. But I wasn't crying while I was.
Yeah. And it would have been okay if you were.
Yeah. And I think, so, if we were to walk away about that conversation of tears, when you see the perception of a C-level or a business owner, what do you think when they're not talking about tears, sadness, stress, et cetera? Like, what is your perception of a business owner?
As soon as you started talking and I was picturing that, my heart just got so heavy with compassion. Running something is hard. It just is. It's a ton of work. There's a lot that goes into it. It's a lot of hats one must wear, a lot of things to keep in mind all the time, a lot of pressure, and then there's such an aloneness to it. No one can carry it with you. You can have a stellar team, and everyone can be in their role in a really impressive way, which is how this company is run. I was just talking about it with someone else on the team. They're like, how is everybody so well positioned? And I'm like, that's what great leadership does. So all of that can be true. No one will join you at the top. They can't. There's never going to be the same amount of pressure. And so there's just so much that exists at the top level that's done alone.
Yeah.
And we're not meant to do things alone.
Yeah.
And so there are those late night cry sessions or screaming in the car. There's a really unpleasant part of success that we don't honor often with words. Yeah, and it's this one.
It's tears. It's crying.
There's so much crying.
Well, so it was
much crying in success.
It was so funny because I remember. So if you haven't been to the Siarza offices here in Albuquerque, we have different rooms, right? We have our conference room, which is our collaboration room. We have my office. We have the business office. Everybody, our account executives, our directors have their own private spaces. But our supply room, I was so pissed. So our supply room, beautifully organized. If you want a snack, if you want the waters, if you want staples, even though we're mostly a digital company, but we have staples in there.
If you need them, we got them. I mean, not for you. Like, you can't come get staples from our office, but if we need them, we have them. Yeah.
So I wrote it as the quiet room because there actually is a table there with a refrigerator. So if somebody's nursing, somebody needs some private time, somebody needs to take a phone call that, you don't want anybody to hear. Somebody calls it the cry room, and I about died. I was like, well, that's fucked up.
And yet
we still joke about it as the cry room.
Yeah.
And I thought it was funny, but I said, well, I didn't want to create that kind of culture where people needed to cry.
But it's not okay. You could create that where you're making people cry because of this being unpleasant. And then there's just the reality of life and a job and clients and demands and deadlines that then sometimes comes out through your face. Like, that's just part of it as well. Like, I walked in on someone who I checked in because I knew she was having a tough time. She had a tough client. And so I'm like, hey, girl, how's it going? And she just right away was like, nope. And crying started. And she was so embarrassed. And I'm like, nope, no. Absolutely not. It's such a healthy thing. It's a natural thing.
Yeah.
And I told her, honey, I cry in my office kind of regularly. I don't even go to the cry room. I've spent so much money in therapy to be able to cry that wherever it's happening, it's happening, and everyone can just deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Like, so whether it's work stuff or, I've got an aging doggy, and it's a very new experience for me, and that brings up a lot, or just life or whatever. And sometimes it comes out.
It just comes out
liquidy through my face, and it needs to happen, and it's okay. And I was like, you don't have to be embarrassed. Crying is not embarrassing. Having emotions is not embarrassing.
Nope.
Feeling your feelings is not embarrassing. There's nothing strong about armoring up. Like, you tell me if you were on the battlefield and you saw someone come in like a big, machine robot thing, it'd be like, okay, that'll probably do some damage. Then you see someone come out butt naked, no shoes on, no clothes, with just a sword. Who is the stronger person? Who's the scarier person? Who are you not going to mess with?
I feel like that was a comedian who had mentioned that specific story recently.
Really?
Yeah, no.
They're taking my material.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to remember who that comedian was, but it's true.
Was it me?
No, it wasn't. No. I'm sorry. It was something on Netflix, I think. But think about it, right? So when somebody in the office is at the brink of tears, are they crying because of the environment that they're in or the situation, right? And so at what point did we as a society have to feel like we have to apologize for that? That's my question, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember one of our talking about human resources, like in this particular position, human resources, we had a team member that when they were leaving, we do an exit interview, right? We had a human resource director in the room, And she was there and she said, this was the saddest, happiest exit interview I've ever sat in on. And I said, what do you mean? She said, she didn't want to leave. You could tell every emotion she felt was a raw emotion. She did not, but she knew she had to do what's in the best interest of her. And you guys supported that. Fast forward to the fact that she said it was the saddest exit interview that we ever did because everybody was crying. We all were crying because, like, that's human emotion.
Yeah.
Absolute human emotion. And I think that
even thinking about leaving this company and sitting in that room with y'all, like I'm gonna cry. Just even thinking about it. Surely the day will come at some point in life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh,
it hurts.
That'll hurt my heart.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's like when at what point did human resources or human resource departments and companies not allow crying or not allow tears? I think every single time I've left an organization before Siarza, I was weeping.
Yeah.
And it hurt when somebody else didn't feel that same raw emotion as I did.
They're just weirdly like, yes, your severance package will be on your desk. Please get out.
Yeah, no, this one was, I remember when I left one particular part and the individual said, well, you'll still be here in the city, won't you? And I said,
no, I'm never going to be anywhere.
Fine.
It's not relevant.
You have no fucking emotion, too. I was so pissed. I'll never forget that one. Okay, so if a leader, don't put me in this scenario.
Okay.
If a leader is in tears about a business situation, not a human resource situation, like a business situation, no matter what industry that might be in, whether it be public relations, marketing, retail, construction, if you were a team member being maybe a middle management person or an individual line worker, and you saw the boss cry, what would be your thought?
Have I just happened upon them crying, or they're like giving a presentation and crying? Like
the latter.
They're giving a presentation and they're crying. Context, it depends what they're crying about. But to me, I would trust that person more. I would have more respect for that person. I would feel more connected to them. I've given up a long time ago that like crying is weakness or any human emotion aside from anger. I don't know why we've let anger slip through, like that's an okay emotion. But
let's write that down as a topic for another podcast.
Anger?
Yeah, that's a good one.
I had such an embarrassing situation with anger yesterday. Anywho, yeah, to me, I would appreciate that component. Now, if they were crying all the time, a new conversation needs to happen.
Yep.
But yeah, that's
a very valid thing to do, I think. I think
absolutely
companies should potentially not reward, but consider, do you need to take a walk outside, or changing the wording about taking a break? Is it, do I need to take a walk outside? Do I need to take a smoke break? Do I need to take a coffee break? Why can't we say, do you need a minute to cry? Right. Do you need a minute to breathe? I support this,
but not to ask that they leave to do it.
Oh, yeah. It's a great point, yeah.
Because that's like, oh, this is about to be uncomfortable for the rest of us. Please exile yourself away from our presence so we don't have to feel slightly uncomfortable for a short amount of time. No. It's amazing how much we do to avoid feeling slightly uncomfortable for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
We'll go to weird lengths to not feel that. But yeah, if it was like, if an athlete gets hurt, what does everybody do?
They worry.
No, they take a knee. I mean, like in that moment, right? You go down and you let
they're
them,
worrying while they're taking a knee.
Yeah, you pause and you
Can
honor
you tell I'm not an athlete? Sorry.
Like, you're the sports one. I thought I was like, she'll know for sure. She's
you're right.
doing the
You're totally right. They take a knee.
They take a knee. They honor it. They go, whoa, let's all pause down. Let's take a moment. Let's be quiet. Let's get down to their level. Let's honor this moment and let them do what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. Why couldn't we just do that with crying?
Well, so a perfect example, I think, of that when the tears genuinely flowed was when Damar Hamlin had gotten to cardiac arrest in the middle of the game in the second quarter. of the Cincinnati. I know I'm sounding like a sports podcaster, but hear me out.
No, now I'm like more context, more I don't know who this is. Football player. Cincinnati. Got it. Okay, go.
So since he was a Buffalo Bills player playing against the Cincinnati Bengals, he had the unfortunate situation where he was just elbowed by a player, a very good defensive player, and he had the ball, and all of a sudden, a offensive player, and all of a sudden he just got hit in the chest with his shoulder. It was the wrong time to be hit in the chest by milliseconds, because that's what put him into cardiac arrest, because all of a sudden, and I see it very vividly in my head at this moment, he just collapsed on the field. And so everybody around him took a knee. But it wasn't until the tears started to flow where people said something's not right here. And all of the broadcasters and everybody froze. And that was the most human moment in the NFL in its entire history, because they have people talking, PR people giving about, the stories of the players, or the journalists trying to make sure they're humanizing this player. No. That was the most human I've ever seen the NFL, because they took a knee and grown-ass men were weeping in fear because they thought he had died on the field, right? And so those moments are, I think, it's unfortunate that it has to be a tear to humanize a person, especially in leadership, but it happens.
Except, yes, and we see grown men crying. We go, whoa, this is a momentous situation that's happening. Let's all pause down. If we think about, with no names, a female political figure who cried publicly. Oh, she's emotional. Oh, she has no control of her feelings. Yeah. She's erratic. It's different, right?
Very much so.
How tears are seen. And so it makes sense that there's some tactic that goes into like, oh, better not show this and all these things. Like, I would like to know, like, I'm sure this wasn't orchestrated, but at some point when we decided like, oh, we're going to have no emotions except like everything's fine. Oh, just we're all great all the time. And I've got this fake ass smile on and we're fine, right?
Yeah.
And then we thought, this is going to work out well. Let's shove everything else aside. We'll compartmentalize all of our existence where we spend the most of our waking time at our jobs.
Yeah.
And we're going to turn out as a super productive, healthy, functioning, happy society. And we're going to have no backlash to this at all. Oh, and by the way, let's start it with boys at about 3 years old. I'm sure that won't show up in aggression and violence later. Like, what was the thinking with this? We have all of the things for a reason. Mm-hmm. Stuff is built in for a purpose. Laughter, tears, anger, shivering, like it all comes built standard for our optimal health and happiness. Mm-hmm. And tears are a really big part of that, of actually moving the energy and releasing the energy that's being stored up that otherwise turns into dis-ease and all of this stuff in our bodies because we're supposed to release it. And guess what? One way is to do that, and it's super healthy.
It's crying.
You better believe it.
So what do scientists say that this is the moment where I sound like a dumbass. What is the dopamine, serotonin? When you laugh, it releases
all of those things: endorphins, oxytocin, dopamine.
All of the things.
Yeah, we like that.
That's the medical term. Okay, so laughter,
all of the things.
Yeah, laughter lets out all of the things. Mm-hmm. Tears let out all of the things.
They do.
Laughter and tears.
Best case scenario.
Best case scenario, right? Uh-huh. Yeah, kind of like along the lines of what you're saying. So
feel all of the things. There's nothing weak about that. I grew up where to have emotions was seen as a weakness. You never wanted to seem vulnerable. I come from back of just trauma, both sides of my family. Like a lot of families, that generational trauma. Mm-hmm. And so to be vulnerable is dangerous. Mm-hmm. And to have emotions and to show them put you in that space of vulnerability, which meant you could be in danger. Mm-hmm. And so it just wasn't acceptable. And it was never spoken directly, like never feel feelings, but it was exemplified. We watched it each time. And man, did that lead to some issues in my life. And we're trying to break that, my sisters and I in our generation, to feel the feels, to do it as a family, to do it together, to watch the resolution happen together. We do it with the girls, my nieces. Like, we're trying to switch it up.
Yeah.
Because now the world is starting to see, oh, that wasn't a great plan. And not feeling the things happening was not a great plan.
Yeah.
And I think we're trying to break out of that. And then how do you do that and still stay professional and still have it be a workplace like this and still be seen, have that trust and credibility as a leader, but also be human.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be one to say that we're in an easy time. I think we're in a messy time where we're starting to figure, like, how do we do all of this?
Yeah.
How do you do it as the leader of this company?
So I think about, so I spend a lot of time making sure that I'm whole myself, right? Because you have said this, we referenced this a long time, or recently, where you had said, it's important for the leader to take care of themselves so that way the staff can see that leadership and it reflects upon each other. And I've noticed when I'm emotional or when I have bullshit that I'm dealing with and it reflects among, and I've shared it among the company, or if the company is at a pressure point as a whole, it does very much ripple throughout the entire organization. So if you're asking me, like, how do I deal with the bullshit of stress? I think I have to tell the team when I'm out, and I have to tell them why I'm out. Not because I don't want to be self-conscious about the fact that we were at a golf tournament for a client. I'm not going to feel guilty about that necessarily. I want them to know that there is a way to have fun and there is a way to take time for yourself, even through a 5-day work week, right? It was work related, but it's definitely fun, right? So I also think about having conversations like this, right? You know, it's a fantastic topic to talk about right in front of Sophia as an intern, because I want her to know that I have panic attacks, right? I have panic attacks where I sit in the corner of my closet at home and I can't breathe, but there's just short breaths and tears coming out. And maybe I definitely can feel my heartbeat, but maybe there's me like sitting in the fetal position. I want her to know that that's very normal for a C-level to do. And my home is a safe space where I can do that, where I can let myself go. I can let myself cry it out, bitch it out, scream it out, huff it out, whatever that might be. I mean,
dance it out.
Dance it out.
Whatever you gotta do.
Yeah, and I think, you know, how do I deal with the tears or the stress of tears while I can try to focus on the happy tears? I find myself happy crying more than sad crying. And a perfect example, circle back to that here in a minute, but I definitely think that a perfect example, the Counselors Academy is a section in PRSA, Public Relations Society. We were talking about at the conference, what do we want to talk about? Who do we want to talk about? What type of guest speaker? And I raised my hand very quickly and I said, we need to talk about the mental health of a business owner. We need to talk about the mental health as agency owners with the liability of other people at our expense. Like, we are responsible for a lot of things, and I think it's very important that we talk about it, sit down. And so they got a person who has a mental health background that is also an accredited public relations person. And we're like, please talk about the importance of being whole as an individual, or being okay of it not being whole as a business owner, as an agency owner, because we need to start talking about those things more often than not.
Absolutely, because otherwise we're trying to do it alone. And we think there's something wrong with me because I'm looking at these other owners or people in my position or peers or whoever, and they seem like they're handling it totally effortlessly. No issues, no problem.
But since when are we all made the same?
And we aren't. But just knowing,
Exactly.
like you were saying, where you exemplify, where you might say, I'm working from home today because I'm dealing with this, this, and this, right? Mm-hmm. Then when this, and this comes up for me, which it's going to, because I too am a human in the world, I go, you know what? I know it's okay to be in this experience, and maybe my 100% today isn't beast mode like it was 2 days ago, but that's okay too, because we're gonna be in this through a long-term scenario, and we get to have all stages of humanity be part of that and benefit it. Like, we work with the people. We deal in people. Mm-hmm. And to separate ourselves from the people experience doesn't actually help us do our job.
To pivot a little bit, I talked about how I'm mostly happy crying than anything. Like I think about, you know, our offices, our headquarters, if you will. And when it was, I'll never forget the moment where sometimes crying for me is not just about sadness, not just about happiness. It's also a sense of relief.
Yes.
So I walked into our new office after it was totally done. We were doing a Catholic blessing in the office, and the priest was walking around. It was when I know, we did this.
No, I'm just thinking, was it an exorcism?
No. That's what you do. You grab the holy water and you bless the office for good juju, good luck, whatever.
We'd smudge it.
Yeah. So the priest was walking around, and it was when, I shit you not, it was when the holy water started spraying all over the walls. I was just like, like the tears came out, and I was so relieved. I was relieved that this office construction was done. I was happy that the staff was here, and it made it feel like family. I was definitely so glad that we're fucking done, right? And so I remember that feeling of unexpected tears in front of the team. That was a moment of relief.
Yeah.
Right?
An accomplishment too, I would imagine. You have an office that you fill with people, and you pay all of us to do jobs. That's pretty friggin' cool. And it had just grown and expanded, and now you have physical space. And I know you're not big on status things and whatnot, but that is a cool moment. You've done a friggin' cool thing. That's so there's that sense too of holy smokes, all of the work and the blood, sweat, and tears that go into
finally came to fruition.
And then here it is. Yeah. So that's absolutely true. Yeah.
Mentioning a flex, this got me into happy tears. You haven't read it yet.
I have no idea what is about to happen.
In a previous conversation that we had, we talked about Ed.
Yeah.
Our business manager.
Love Ed.
Dresses like a bum sometimes.
Surfer.
Beach bum.
Yeah, beach bum. Different.
So Ed wrote to the both of us today, and Justin, our producer, the reason why we're all here and with a great video, hasn't heard this either. Ed said, last night I watched one of the podcasts where Kristelle asked Jace to explain me to people that didn't know me. You were explaining who Ed was, right?
Yeah, sure. Uh-huh.
He said, I know that I'm a success now because the smile on both of your faces meant that my title here as Ambassador of Happiness, which is the most important thing that I do at this company. Yep, here it comes.
Yep.
No matter what title anyone gives me is the title that I take the most pride in and the one that I try to do my best to do. The kind words that Jace said about me only made me feel honored to work for our organization. And the only thing I regret is that my mom isn't around so I can show her I lived my life exactly the way she taught me and that I'm truly a success in every aspect of the word. Why? Because I make people smile, which is my only goal in life that I try to achieve every day. And then he has these stupid emojis, but it's so good.
Of course he does.
Oh, God.
Well, and here is him in action. Had such a tough morning. Middle of the night cleaning up. Explosive diarrhea again in the morning, breaking up 2 dog fights. It just was a rough morning. I'm all cut up, scratched up. My life includes way more poop than I ever would have.
I got really confused when you started talking about explosive diarrhea. Dude.
Not from me. I guess I should specify. Aging doggy, nerve issues, GI issues. We're trying everything. We're working on it. But his new food had a unfortunate reaction. So I was grumpy. I'm watching my sister's play, so I'm coming in from the mountains and it was late, whatever. Tough morning. So I walk in, I got all my shit. It's like I'm just, you gotta have so much
China
stuff.
shop. That's what I call it.
Get the dog stuff and my work stuff and my lunch stuff and the podcast stuff. And it's just and he's like, good morning. Cause he's Ed and that's how it is. And I just glared at him and I'm like, morning. Just really, and he's like, what is happening? And I said, I'm sorry. I'm grumpy. I'm pretty grumpy, man. And he just goes, nope. Come here. Come here. And he gives me the biggest hug. And he's
really
like,
sweet.
You're good, Jace. It's all good. You're good. And I just like, he like tried to let go and I was like, nope, we're still hugging. And I so needed it. I so needed it.
That's awesome.
He always comes through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think it's when that's an example of like the happy tears that often happen in this office. In any case scenario, I think. Trying to think of another time where all of a sudden the tears. Oh, perfect example where I didn't expect the tears to happen, but all it took was a look. So I was at the New Mexico State Legislature. It was this historic joint session for New Mexico's Asian Day, APINH Day. It's something that's forever in statute now, but they originally, I was the backup to the backup to the backup speaker. The original intention of a joint session, which is really rare, was to actually have a specially elected individual come into town. And she didn't make it. So fast forward, this is my ABC hat, right? They said, hey, we would like for you and your colleague, Sachi Watase. Sachi is the executive director of the Asian Family Center. And we'd like the two of you to speak at the joint session. We're like, well, this is a big deal. Okay. So Sachi prepares a speech. We go over it. We talk about it. Great. She crushes the speech. And then all of a sudden I get up there and I start talking about Asian American Day, APINH Day, is founded by my aunt. I always get incredibly emotional about talking about her. I talked about her in the mentor episode. The only way that I won't get emotional is if time continues to pass longer. And I was talking about how this was a mission of hers, and this was one of the first things she had done. And then all of a sudden, I look at her friend. The last time I saw her friend was when we were at her funeral, and I see her friend. And I say her name, I say her friend's name, who is Representative Patricia Roybal Caballero. And I look at her and I said, literally, it's on the record. I say, Representative Caballero, please don't make me cry. And we just had a moment in front of 500 to 750 fucking people in the roundhouse. And we're just like crying about the fact we missed somebody, we lost somebody, the grief that we equally shared about my mentor. I just remember that was one of those ones where it's like, where did that come from? Like,
it's in there.
It's in there, right? It was one of the most surreal moments. And it was one of the most, if I could say that there were moments where I remember, like, did I make history? That was a historic moment, and I cried during it too.
Which sounds appropriate to me. It's a milestone.
Very much so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, like, where does it come from? And grief is different. Grief is not linear by any means.
No.
It lives in us, and we have these milestones where then all of a sudden what once was okay in the day-to-day, it's like, oh, now this person isn't here to witness this, like Ed's mama or your mentor. And then it's back again, right? Because it's very there. But oftentimes things come up because we haven't actually processed them. So I like to talk about processing in the present. So if you see me in the Dallas airport with tears and snot in my hair because I'm crying, true story, I'm processing in the present.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to store all of that stuff and then have it come out sideways, have it come out through anger or an explosion or addictive behavior or whatever it is, because I just haven't processed it. So as I was telling to my colleague, like, no, I just cry sitting at my desk. I'll just be working, quietly crying, and like just keep at it because there's stuff that's got to be done, and it's just happening right then.
I know.
Or pause. I absolutely will, especially as I've been doing the grieving
I really encourage
process.
you to pause because I feel guilty.
No, like, I do. And like sometimes I work from home because I'm just really struggling. I have a grief counselor now, an anticipatory bereavement counselor to deal with Charlie stuff. But I'll like pause down and just cry it out, and then it's all good. Yeah. And just allowing that space. But sometimes it's just, they're just coming. There's nothing to be done about it.
It just comes.
And I just keep in motion.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, processing in the present is so important. And so many of us fear that because we don't know what to do with it. I used to think if I start crying, I'll never stop. So I didn't even want to start. I had so many years of crying to do that I was afraid to open the floodgate. Like I thought, well, then I'll just never stop crying because I was holding so much sadness.
Yeah.
So much pain. every day. I lived in emotional pain every single day from childhood abuse stuff that just didn't get dealt with until I was an adult. And like, I was so afraid of even, side-eyeing it. Like, well, if you look at it at all, it's never going to stop. And,
I remember along the same lines we were talking about childhood. I remember having, and I live with a lot of mom guilt. I didn't have custody of my son until he was 8 years old, right? And I had to leave him behind so that way because of a terrible non-compete. And I remember one moment where I was with kiddo, and I still feel very guilty that I said it to him because I don't know if it came out the way that I intended it to. Long story short is that he wanted something and he just started crying about it. And it was something very erroneous, like a toy, a book, a show, etc. He just started to cry. And I feel bad, and I still ask myself, was this the right thing for me to say? I said, there are appropriate times to cry, kiddo. There are appropriate times to cry. There are appropriate times to cry like when you get hurt, or somebody makes you mad and you're frustrated, or you're upset at me for something that you said, or you get hit in the face or something like that, like pain, like actual pain. Like, it's okay to cry. It's not okay to cry when it's something that you don't get your way from, or you want something but we're not seeing eye to eye about it, and it's very materialistic or something like that. I remember telling him that. I was like, please stop crying only for the things that really don't matter. But if it's things that are very important or they are emotional, like, it's okay to cry. I don't know if I should have said that to him or not. And I'm not asking at the same time.
I have some thoughts on that.
Yeah. But no. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But like, I'm not asking for forgiveness from him on that front. I just wanted him to know that there's a right way to like express your emotion of it. And I also didn't want him to be the boy that's like, well, my mom told me never to cry. And that was ultimately what I was trying to prevent. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's my thoughts on that.
I think disappointment is one of the things we do not teach kids or even adults how to deal with.
Oh my God.
That's what's happening, right? Like, I want it. I want what I want when I want it. And I want it.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't happen.
You don't have to deal with that if you don't.
We do, because we all do. I want what I want when I want it.
Yeah.
And sometimes the universe doesn't see eye to eye, or my employer, or my, whoever in my life. Disappointment is something that comes with us through our life. And people will just go, it's part of life, suck it up. That's our instructions for disappointment.
Yeah.
We don't really talk about how to process that. And we use the tools we have, right? When we're kids, like, I can go, oh, I'm experiencing disappointment. I wanted a thing and that thing didn't happen, and I can self-soothe and whatever, right? Like, thanks, therapy. I've done my stuff. But kids, they use the tools they have, and tears are one of them. And then we cut them off from their tool.
Oh, yeah. No, this was when he was like 10.
That's a kid?
Yeah.
Yeah. And a kid get, like, even I know adult people, grown-up adult people who don't go, oh, I had wanted this thing and then that didn't happen and for these reasons and now I'm processing this way. No, they just scream or they yell or they lose their shit or they're unkind.
Yeah.
Like, because we don't learn about how to deal with disappointment. And crying actually is a great release, because when we are disappointed, we're in a victim state.
Yeah.
I wanted something and it didn't happen. This happened, something was taken from me or whatever. And if we can just cry and let it out, then it's gone.
Yeah.
Then we don't store it. Like, animals don't have the same disease issues we do, because they process immediately.
They process
No
immediately.
one has told them to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Right? It's very interesting.
The free will or the conscience aspect of an animal. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
We have to have a whole conversation on free will.
Yeah.
Because I have many thoughts on that. But the just being in it, and like you talked about your closet as your panic room in a way.
Yeah.
Mine is the kitchen floor. Even when I was a little kid, we had this rags rug, and they like take a bunch of materials and then they weave it together as a rug. I remember it very well. And anytime I was upset, it was the kitchen floor. As an adult to this day, I'm on the kitchen floor crying when I'm really upset. I don't know why. That's my go-to spot. And I can't tell you, either when it was running my own business or any of the endeavors, how often I was on the floor crying. And no, I'm not weak. And no, I'm not like every little thing bothers me. I'm a tough SOB. Mm-hmm. And I'm a human. And stuff sucks. And it's hard. And there's pressure. And something didn't turn out the way I wanted. Or I worked really hard and then it just didn't happen. Or I'm broke. Or my feelings got hurt. Or whatever, right? And to be like, suck it up and we just have to deal with it. No. I spend much time on the kitchen floor. Less and less as I've gone on.
Yeah.
But that is part of success, whether it's a closet or your car or the kitchen floor or whatever. Crying is absolutely an essential ingredient for success.
Yep, 100%. We are running out of time. So we definitely want to make sure. I'm sorry. I know this is such a heavy topic, but we're running out of time.
And it's not.
Yeah.
It's both.
Yeah.
It's all of it.
It's all of it. So we're running out of time and wanted to say one of the most important things that I always like to end on is I always thank you for sharing what you share, especially from the level of vulnerability that you have about it. And I don't want to leave and just say, okay, we're done. Like, it's very important that we acknowledge the fact that you've said what you've said because somebody can very much relate to the kitchen floor, or in my case, a business owner that might not want to feel like the workspace is their safe space, but their closet might be. There's somebody that's got to be out there.
They're crying right now.
They're crying right now.
Cry with you.
Yeah.
See, and the thing is, because you always close us, I never get to thank you.
Oh.
You too share your life, and you share things that a lot of people in your position wouldn't.
I wish they would.
I know.
Like, I really
Do
wish
it.
that they would.
Talk about it. Come on. Share with us here. Like, where do you cry, or how do you process your emotions, or how's that shown up in your life? Y'all are always very welcome to respond in the comments or hit us up, info@siarza.net, rwe.com for that email address.
.net.
That's so.
And don't forget to follow us on your favorite streaming channel. But thanks as always. This is today's episode, Tears of Stories, Success, and Stuff.